Bonjour, je vais faire ma déclaration d'abord en anglais et puis après en français. Good day everyone. I'm here in Alberta, in Edmonton, with our candidates who are ready to work with you and for you. I want to speak today about, the trade conflict that we have with the United States. It is more important than ever to talk about tax cuts because whatever happens with this trade conflict, we absolutely need to make our economy more productive and competitive. And we need to reduce the tax burden on businesses and individual taxpayers is one of the key ways to achieve this. Since the beginning of the campaign, both Marc Carney and Pierre Poilievre have announced some tax cuts. What they propose is targeted, limited, and temporary tax relief that will have absolutely no significant impact on our economy. Carney announced that he wants to cut the equivalent of $400 a year in income tax, while Poilievre is proposing $900 a year. Even $900 is not enough to pay the average monthly rent for an apartment in most cities. It's better than nothing, but it's almost nothing. What we need are significant, more ambitious tax cuts to allow Canadian families to keep up with the higher cost of living. The prices of everything have gone up tremendously and a lot the past 5 years. Not only do the Liberals and Conservatives offer only tiny tax cuts, but both support imposing counter tariffs on U.S. imports, which will drive up the price of everything even more. Both Carney and Poilievre also propose to cut the GST for first-time home buyers. That's not a bad idea. I'm all for cutting taxes, but they are doing that at the same time as they want to import hundreds of thousands more immigrants every year. Mass immigration is the main reason why housing are unaffordable in our country. The demand cannot keep up with the supply. What about cutting business taxes to make our Canadian companies better able to compete in a business environment that is becoming even more difficult? None of them is talking about cutting corporate taxes. Canada's combined federal provincial corporate tax rate is 26.5%. The average of the OECD countries is only 24%. And President Trump also wants to cut corporate tax by several points in the U.S. If we do nothing to keep up with our competitors, Canadian companies will lose market shares, their profits will go down, they will lay off workers, and everyone will get poorer. We need to be much more ambitious on that front too, or we will be left behind. For our economy to become more productive and competitive, we also need to make investment in Canada more attractive. Canada is a champion for handing out subsidies to businesses, but that's not working. We are simply taking money from some taxpayers and businesses and giving it to other businesses. What we need is to make investing attractive, and for that, we need to cut taxes on investment. Mark Carney cancelled Trudeau's catastrophic increase in the capital gains tax, but he is not talking about reducing it. Polyev, for his part, is proposing to defer paying capital gains tax for 2 years if you sell foreign assets and buy Canadian assets. If this is such a good idea to bring capital tax down, why not keeping it for more than 2 years? Why not forever? Again, it is amazing how these two establishment politicians lacked any ambition. They only want to tinker with the tax system at the margin, but they don't want to change anything fundamentally. What I propose is to abolish the capital gains tax entirely. In the crisis situation we are in, we need to be bold. We need a tax revolution. And we need to be able to afford these tax cuts without borrowing more. Carney and Polyev still have not said what spending they will cut to pay for even their small tax cut proposals. Neither the Liberal Party nor the Conservative Party have published their costed platform. You know, they are afraid to tell Canadians that money does not grow in trees, and that there are difficult choices to make if we want to live within our means. What they will do is simply borrowing more, and we will end up paying more taxes later or pay the government deficit with more inflation. We must first cut government spending drastically, eliminate the deficit, and then cut taxes in a sustainable manner with the surpluses. I announced the PPC's costed platform in the first week of our electoral campaign. A PPC government will cut a series of government programs worth $60 billion in order to eliminate our $50 billion budget deficit in 1 year. You know, we can cut corporate welfare and save $25 billion. We can cut foreign aid and save $10 billion. We can cut also our contribution to the war in Ukraine that Liberals and Conservatives want to continue. At least we can save another $5 billion per year. CBC and the mainstream media, we can cut them and save $2 billion. Equalization, as you know, the money that the federal government is giving in that program, equalization payments, it is $26 billion a year. We can cut half of that. We can save another $13 billion. First Nation, you know, the Trudeau government has tripled in 10 years the amount that the federal government is giving to Indigenous affairs. The amount now is $32 billion. You know, we can save a couple of $billion absolutely there by cutting at least $5 billion. EDI and multiculturalism programs grants to thousands of groups across the country that should be self-financing. We can save a couple of billions there. Daycare, pharmacare, dental care, these programs are under the exclusive jurisdictions of the provincial governments. We must respect the Constitution and cut these programs. We need to first clean up Ottawa's finances, and then we will be able to offer significant and sustainable tax cuts to our businesses and to Canadian families. With all the tax cuts that we are proposing, we will be able to eliminate the deficit in 1 year and be able to have a surplus the second year. With the surplus, all the money that we will have as surplus will go to reduce taxes to Canadians and businesses. It is time in our country for real reforms. It is time to vote for the People's Party of Canada and support your PPC candidate in your riding. Maintenant, je vais faire ma déclaration en français. Je suis aujourd'hui à Edmonton, en Alberta, avec mes candidats de la région d'Edmonton pour parler des réductions de taxes et de dépenses dans le contexte d'un conflit commercial avec les États-Unis. Il est plus important que jamais de parler des réductions d'impôts parce que, quoi qu'il advienne avec ce conflit commercial, nous devons absolument rendre notre économie plus productive et plus compétitive. La réduction du fardeau fiscal des entreprises et des contribuables est l'un des principaux moyens de pouvoir y parvenir. Depuis le début de la campagne, Mark Carney et Pierre Poilievre ont annoncé des baisses d'impôts. Ce qu'ils proposent est un allègement fiscal ciblé, limité ou temporaire qui n'aura absolument aucun impact notable sur notre économie. Carney a annoncé qu'il veut réduire l'équivalent de 400 $ d'impôts par année et Poilievre a, lui, promis qu'il allait réduire nos impôts de 900 $ par année. Même 900 $ par année, c'est insuffisant pour payer le loyer mensuel moyen d'un appartement dans la plupart des grandes villes canadiennes. Oui, vous direz, c'est mieux que rien, mais c'est presque rien. Il nous faut des réductions d'impôts beaucoup plus ambitieuses pour permettre aux familles canadiennes de faire face à la hausse du coût de la vie. Le prix de tous les biens et services ont augmenté énormément depuis 5 ans. Non seulement les libéraux et les conservateurs n'offrent que de petites réductions d'impôts, mais ils sont tous les deux en faveur de l'imposition de tarifs de représailles sur les importations américaines, ce qui fera grimper encore plus le prix de tout. Carney et Poilievre proposent également de réduire la TPS pour les acheteurs d'une première maison. Ce n'est pas une mauvaise idée. Je suis tout à fait pour réduire les taxes, mais ils le font en même temps qu'ils veulent importer des centaines de milliers d'immigrants de plus chaque année. L'immigration de masse est la principale raison pour laquelle les maisons sont inabordables au Canada. La demande ne peut tout simplement pas suivre l'offre. Qu'en est-il de la réduction des impôts des entreprises pour permettre à nos entreprises canadiennes d'être plus concurrentielles dans cet environnement commercial qui devient de plus en plus difficile? Aucun des deux grands partis de l'establishment ne parle de réduire l'impôt des sociétés. Le taux combiné fédéral, provincial, de l'impôt des sociétés est de 26,5 %. La moyenne des pays de l'OCDE n'est que de 24 %. Et le président Trump veut également réduire les impôts des sociétés de plusieurs points aux États-Unis. Si nous ne faisons rien pour suivre nos concurrents, les entreprises canadiennes perdront des parts de marché. Leurs profits baisseront, elles licencieront des travailleurs et tout le monde deviendra plus pauvre. Nous devons être aussi beaucoup plus ambitieux sur ce front et sinon, nous serons laissés pour compte. Pour que notre économie devienne plus productive et compétitive, nous devons aussi rendre les investissements au Canada plus attrayants en réduisant les taux d'imposition. Le Canada est un champion de la distribution des subventions aux entreprises, mais vous le savez, cela ne fonctionne pas. Nous prenons simplement de l'argent de certains contribuables et entreprises et le donnons à d'autres entreprises. Il nous faut rendre l'investissement attrayant et pour ce faire, réduire les impôts sur l'investissement. Mark Carney a annulé l'augmentation catastrophique de l'impôt sur le gain capital de Trudeau, mais il ne parle pas de le réduire. Poilievre propose pour sa part de reporter de 2 ans le paiement d'impôt sur les gains en capital si vous vendez des actifs étrangers et achetez des actifs canadiens. Si c'est une bonne idée pour attirer des investissements au Canada, pourquoi ne pas garder cette mesure plus que 2 ans et abolir complètement l'impôt sur les gains en capitaux? Encore une fois, il est étonnant de voir à quel point ces 2 politiciens de l'establishment manquent d'ambition. Ils veulent simplement fignoler avec le système fiscal, et ça à la marge, mais ils ne veulent rien changer de fondamental. Ce que je propose, c'est d'abolir complètement l'impôt sur les gains en capital. Dans cette situation de crise dans laquelle nous sommes, il faut être audacieux, il faut une révolution fiscale. Et nous devons pouvoir nous permettre ces réductions d'impôts sans avoir à emprunter. Carney et Poilievre n'ont toujours pas dit quelles dépenses ils vont réduire pour financer même leurs petites propositions de réduction d'impôts. Ni le Parti libéral, ni le Parti conservateur n'ont publié leur plateforme financière. Ils ont peur de dire aux contribuables canadiens qu'est-ce qu'ils vont couper et ils ont peur de leur dire la vérité, que l'argent ne pousse pas dans les arbres. Il faut faire des choix difficiles en politique pour vivre selon nos moyens. Ce qu'ils vont faire, c'est simplement emprunter davantage et nous finirons par payer plus d'impôts plus tard. Ou encore, payer le déficit budgétaire indirectement par l'inflation. Il faut d'abord réduire les dépenses publiques de façon draconienne, éliminer le déficit et ensuite réduire les impôts de manière durable avec les surplus. J'ai annoncé la plateforme financière du Parti populaire dès la première semaine de la campagne électorale. Un gouvernement du Parti populaire couperait une série de programmes gouvernementaux d'une valeur de 60 milliards de dollars afin d'éliminer notre déficit budgétaire de 50 milliards de dollars en une année. Nous allons éliminer les subventions aux entreprises et nous allons pouvoir économiser 25 milliards de dollars. Nous allons éliminer l'aide étrangère et nous allons pouvoir économiser 10 milliards de dollars. Nous allons aussi éliminer la contribution à la guerre en Ukraine, que les libéraux et les conservateurs veulent continuer, et nous allons être capables de sauver 5 milliards de dollars par année. La péréquation, le gouvernement fédéral transfère 26 milliards de dollars par année dans le programme de péréquation. Eh bien, nous allons couper la moitié dans ce programme-là, la moitié des sommes. Nous allons économiser 13 milliards de dollars. Les affaires autochtones, l'argent que le gouvernement Trudeau a donné aux Autochtones, aux affaires autochtones, en 10 ans, a triplé et c'est maintenant 32 milliards de dollars. On peut bien sûr couper quelques milliards de dollars dans ce programme et sauver encore beaucoup d'argent. Tous les programmes de EDI, du multiculturalisme, les subventions à des milliers de groupes à travers le pays qui devraient se financer eux-mêmes, eh bien, on peut économiser quelques milliards là aussi. Les garderies, les médicaments, les soins dentaires, ce sont tous des programmes qui s'ingèrent dans la compétence exclusive des provinces. Nous allons éliminer ces programmes. Nous devons d'abord assainir les finances publiques, après quoi nous pourrons offrir des réductions d'impôts importantes et durables à nos entreprises et aux familles canadiennes. C'est le temps pour des vraies réformes. c'est le temps d'appuyer nos candidats du Parti populaire à travers le Canada. Maintenant, je suis prêt à répondre à vos questions en anglais et en français. Now, I'm ready to answer your questions in English and in French.
Just a moment, we'll need to get this set up.
We have a question here.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah. Put that here. Oh, do you want to put it?
If it goes up anymore.
Yeah, I
If
think
you
it
have any
is.
question on the Zoom, please raise your hand. Si vous avez des questions sur le Zoom, levez la main, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you.
Go ahead, man.
Hello. Well, I just wanted to start off by asking about your proposed cut of the capital gains tax. If you could just go over a little bit about, I guess, how this falls in line with your platform and what you hope to do with that.
Sorry?
Just tell us a little bit about your proposed plan to cut the
Yes.
capital gains tax.
Yes, like I said in my declaration, before cutting taxes, we need to balance the budget, and we can do that in 1 year. That's what I said. You know, our budget deficit of this year will be about $50 billion, and we can cut for $60 billion to be able to balance the budget in 1 year and having some surplus. Our proposal is to cut taxes the second year of a People's Party government with all the surplus. And yes, we want to abolish the capital gains tax. It will be important to do that because in our trade war with the US right now, we want our corporations and our businesses to be competitive. If we are doing that, they will be able to keep more of their profits in their pockets, and they will be able to reinvest to be more productive. They will be able also to create jobs in this country. And it's important to say also that the corporate income tax, if you add the federal one and the provincial one, it's around 26.5% corporate income tax in Canada. And in the OECD countries, it's about only 24%. And President Trump said that he will reduce corporate income tax. So our proposal is to be sure for our businesses, our entrepreneurs, corporations, to be more profitable, to be more competitive. We need to have a flat tax on business at 15%, and also we need to be able to abolish the capital gains tax, and we will do it.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the lost revenue there, you were mentioning a number of ways which the People's Party plans to save money on other areas. Could you take us through some of those?
Yeah, foreign aid, $10 billion that we will save. Corporate welfare, the subsidies that the federal government is giving to big corporations, that would be another $25 billion that will save. The equalization payments, it is very important for Albertan here, and I understand that Albertan don't like these payments. We need to cut that by half at least, starting with that. That will be the right incentive for provinces like Quebec or New Brunswick to develop their own natural resources. As you may know, in Quebec right now, there's a moratorium on the exploitation of shale gas. You know, Quebec is not exploiting their shale gas because the Quebec government is listening to the radical environmentalists, and if they do that, they will have fewer money, less money coming from the equalization payments. So let's cut that by half. We will save $13 billion. I said also, you know, First Nation, the federal government is giving $32 billion there. And I don't believe that, you know, we have clear water on reserve. We need to change that. We need to have more transparency. And we can save, you know, take another $5 billion there. So adding all that together, we can balance the budget, having surplus, and with surplus, reducing taxes. Because what Polyev is telling you, what Carney is telling you, is they will reduce taxes, but we don't know what they will cut. They will do that. That will increase our deficit and our debt. It is not responsible. Polyev is not fiscally responsible. It is time to have bold reforms. It is time to have an income tax revolution in this country. by doing our proposal.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to ask, did you get a chance to watch the French language debate last night? And if so, do you have any comment on anything you may have seen?
Oh, yeah. A lot of comments. First, I really enjoyed the questions by the journalists. He did ask if Carney and Poilievre will withdraw from the Paris Accord. The answer was no. So Poilievre and Carney on climate change are the same. They will do everything for our country to achieve the Paris Accord targets. For Carney and Poilievre, CO2 is a pollutant. CO2 is a gas essential for life. We won't do anything. We will withdraw from the Paris Accord. Also, they had a question about the equalization money. Both Poilievre and Carney said that they won't cut the equalization payments. And that's very important to do that, to be fair for every province. And that formula is not fair. Actually, about immigration, both of them told us in French that they won't, stop mass immigration. When we know that 70% of Canadians are saying enough is enough with mass immigration. Poilievre and Carney are pandering to these immigrants. And as you know, Poilievre is having a new costume every weekend to do that. For Poilievre, the most important is not the seats here in Alberta, because he's taking your vote for granted. The most important for him is all the seats near the Toronto, the GTA over there. There's more seats around Toronto than in all the province of Alberta. And we know that 40% of immigrants are going to Toronto and Vancouver, and he wants to have the support of these immigrants in these ridings. Poilievre is not working for Western Canadians, and he's not working for all Canadians.
And do you have any thoughts leading into the English language debate tonight?
Yeah, it's sad that, in French it was not a real debate because the People's Party was not there. The Leaders' Debate Commission censored 840,000 Canadians who voted for the People's Party. I will look at that debate, but I don't think that we'll learn a lot. Actually, the most important is how Poilievre and Carney will pay for their promises. We don't know. We don't know. They told us that we'll know that a couple of days before the election. It is irresponsible. Canadians must know. And I hope that during this English debate, they will take the opportunity to tell the truth to Canadians where they will take the money. We don't know. It will be a bigger deficit and it will be a bigger debt. That is irresponsible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Some question online?
No, we don't have any questions online. No question.
Okay, go ahead.
I just had a question. What would be your pitch for Canadians voting for Conservative to cast their ballot for PPC? And what would be your plans to bring back foreign investment back into Alberta and Canada?
Yeah, the question is about foreign investment. Like I said in my speech, this country must be able to attract investment from Canadian entrepreneurs, but also from outside. That's why we need that fiscal revolution. That's why we need to be responsible and balance the budget in 1 year, like I said. And after that, we'll be able to have a flat tax on business, and we won't impose any capital gains tax. That is great, and that is important because we want businesses and Canadians to be able to create wealth, and we won't impose any corporation or any individuals who are having a capital gain, because we want them to be richer. And if we want to attract investment in our country, that is the best thing to do.
And my question before that was what would you say to Canadians that are on the edge of voting for Conservatives versus PPC? What would your message be for them?
Yeah, the question is my message for people who want to vote for the Conservative, but they like the People's Party platform. The answer is, I'm telling them, with Carney, this country is going at high speed into a wall. With Poilievre, we are going into a wall, but at the limit speed. So, both of them are the same on the most important issues for this country. I'm telling Canadians, if you want to have a common sense revolution, a peaceful revolution, vote for the People's Party. Vote for what you believe. You'll have more chances to have what you want. And you know what? We will support Poilievre when he'll be a real conservative, but also we will shame him when he won't. So that's a win-win. And that's why I'm here in Alberta. We have a lot of support here, and I'm telling to Albertans, if you vote for one of our or all our candidates in this province, you won't elect a Liberal. The Liberal Party of Canada won't be able to have somebody elected here. It's all about us or the Conservative. So it's a win-win. Vote for us, vote for your ideas, and we'll start that common sense revolution in our country. Thank you.
So you believe the Conservatives are not cutting enough? They're just trying to pander to certain areas?
Yeah, the Conservatives are pandering to every ethnicity. They are not fiscally responsible. And like I said, for Pierre Poilievre, his goal is to split the Liberal votes in the big GTA near Toronto and in Vancouver. And you know, I hope that more Albertans and Western Canadians will realize that Poilievre is taking your vote for granted. It is time for a change. Other questions?
Yeah, sure.
Pas d'autres questions, no. No questions.
Obviously, as we're both like young Canadians kind of entering adulthood, right? Right now, on a lot of young Canadians' minds, the increasing price of homes and the cost of living is a very big thing on our minds, right? How do your policies kind of address that and set us up in the future to where we're going to be actually saving money, investing in our futures, instead of kind of living paycheck to paycheck when we grow up into adulthood, right?
Yeah, the question is about housing, and our proposal, like I said, you know, it's a question of supply and demand. And our role is to be sure to cut the demand, and by that, we need to have a moratorium on immigration for a couple of years. On that, Poilievre, what he's telling you, Poilievre and Carney said that they will build more houses, but not for Canadians, not to solve the housing crisis. No, to be sure to be able to have more foreigners coming to our country. So the best way to help young couples to be able to buy a house is to have a moratorium on immigration, is to balance the budget in 1 year, is to ask the Bank of Canada to have a zero inflation target. You know, right now, the Bank of Canada has an inflation target of 2%. 20% inflation is bad, 2% inflation is bad. We want you to be able to be richer, and we want you to increase your purchasing power. That's why we will ask the Bank of Canada to have a 0% inflation target. So like that, we won't have any inflation. So if you do this bold reform, that will help young couples to buy a house and maybe to have more kids. Thank you. Question online? No?
No question online.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.